Okay, so next one is Oreo is the knockoff. The original cookie is back for revenge. I wouldn't even call Oreo a cookie, I don't know. Yeah. By hook.
This video is sponsored by Atlas VPN. Oreo is the best-selling cookie in the world.
It's a cookie, okay.
You probably know of the tradition of twisting, licking, or dunking
I would have just called it a biscuit. But yeah, I don't know.
the cookie, but few know the dark side of its history. That's because many of its secrets have been buried for over 100 years, starting with the cookie being a knockoff with a questionable filling.
Everything's a knockoff of something, you know.
Before we get into the next part of the story, our team would like to quickly thank our sponsor and
I'll pass this one suspect.
information. You can also find to traveling by hot/hook.
The biscuit ones.
In the 19th century, two cousins from Lancaster, England, both named Thomas Vickers, ran a small factory called T&T Vickers. The factory designed and built machines to make a food staple that kept sailors and soldiers alive for centuries: ship biscuits. These simple biscuits consisted of flour, salt, and water, and were made to be rock hard to last for years.
And they taste great in milk.
Since sailors and soldiers needed them for long voyages. They tasted bland and could only be consumed when soaked in water or any other liquid. While inconvenient, the demand for them lasted for many years, up until a series of events. After steamships were invented and the Civil War had ended, there became less of a need for biscuits that could withstand long voyages. At the same time, sugar became less expensive, creating the demand for biscuits that were sweet. When the Vickers caught onto this new demand, they became wary that it was just a matter of time until they closed their factory doors. All the machines that they designed and built could only make ship biscuits, so they decided to change with the times and offer new machines that made sweet biscuits instead. It proved to be a worthwhile risk. Sweet biscuits became more popular across England and even a luxury product.
It goes well with the tea, I
America
guess.
quickly caught on to the trend and began importing machines to make their own. Afterward, many manufacturers seized opportunities to venture into the growing industry, including two brothers from Mercersburg, Pennsylvania, Jacob and Joseph Luce. At just 16 years old, Jacob Luce dropped out of high school to work as a clerk at a dry goods store, earning $5 a week. Within just a few years, he had saved enough money to open his own store, and later, a second location. As the years went by, business continued to thrive, and Jacob felt confident enough to expand into other ventures. Eventually, Jacob discovered an opportunity in Kansas, Missouri, taking over a small family-run bakery that made biscuits and candies. He had a hunch that the baking industry would continue to grow and convinced his brother Joseph to be his business partner. At the time, Joseph also ran his own dry goods store. Together, the Luce brothers emptied their savings, purchased the bakery, and called it the Luce Brothers Manufacturing Company.
That name is too funny.
Within just a few years, the Luce brothers managed to grow the company into a multi-million-dollar business. It was undeniably a great accomplishment, but Jacob wasn't satisfied. Companies in other industries like oil and steel were gaining more capital through a new practice called conglomerating, which involves merging a number of businesses to operate as a single entity. It was unheard of in the food industry, but Jacob believed that it could work since it would allow bakeries to buy huge lots of wheat and contract directly with farmers. So he hired a lawyer named Adolphus Green to be his general counsel and to convince other bakeries in the Midwest to form a conglomerate. While Adolphus had no legal experience in the food industry, he succeeded in bringing together 35 bakeries under the name the American Biscuit Company. They became so successful that bakeries in other regions formed their own conglomerates, the New York Biscuit Company and the United States Baking Company. Soon after, the rival conglomerates embarked on a bitter war. The competition became so fierce that the price of biscuits fell by 40% industry-wide and led to the American Biscuit Company teetering on the brink of collapse.
Great for the consumer, though.
Slowly, the struggle to survive took a toll on Jacob. He became seriously ill and was forced to step down as president of the American Biscuit Company. Afterward, he traveled to Europe to recover, leaving Joseph in charge. Joseph was fed up with the bitter war against the American Biscuit Company's rivals. So his first order of business was to find a way to make peace. He settled on a profitable but grand idea that would mirror his brother's footsteps in an unimaginable way, forming a conglomerate with the New York Biscuit Company.
Just make a
the
bigger
United States
conglomerate,
Baking
yeah.
Company.
Until everything is wiped out and there's only one company and it's an absolute monopoly, of course. I mean, business, let's go.
From his sick bed, Jacob received the news by letter. He hurriedly wrote back to Joseph, begging him to reconsider. Joseph ignored his pleas, and with the help of Adolphus, succeeded in merging the company with its rivals. Together, they formed the largest baking conglomerate in America, the National Biscuit Company, which later became Nabisco. Before Joseph could celebrate, he discovered that he had made a grave mistake.
Oh, boy.
Adolphus had done more than prepare the paperwork, listing himself as president of Nabisco and the Luce brothers as simply board members.
Did you not read it before signing it? I mean, I guess you trust your lawyer, fair enough. I think I'm too stupid to, to understand most of what would be in a contract, but damn. Well.
Adolphus was now in control of the largest baking company in America.
Can't trust the
When Jacob
Adolf.
received the news, he felt helpless. All he could do was push himself to get better and seek revenge then. This is a Hook exclusive. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel.
Revolutionizing the cookie.
A few years after the merger, Jacob's health finally improved. He reconciled with Joseph, and together they formed a new company with a businessman named John Wiles. Their new venture was called the Luce Wiles Biscuit Company.
Okay.
By then, Adolphus had grown Nabisco by coming up with a groundbreaking invention: an inner sealed package, which consisted of a wax paper sleeve to hold biscuits inside a cardboard container. Traditionally, biscuits were placed in and sold from barrels, making them susceptible to breaking or spoiling. Now, Nabisco could sell biscuits that remained fresh and could be shipped nationally, since the wax paper locked out air and wicked away.
I don't think they're beating
Their
Adolphus.
first line of packaged biscuits was called Unita. To compete with Adolphus, Joseph knew he would have to come up with his own groundbreaking invention, so he decided to launch a product that Nabisco didn't offer: a sweet cake, which is now known as a cookie.
Okay.
It was a delicacy that only the wealthy could afford, so Joseph focused on creating a recipe that would make his cookies delicious and affordable. After many failed attempts, Joseph decided to try his luck with a new trend sweeping America: chocolate. He believed that if he added cocoa to his recipe, he would be closer to coming up with a groundbreaking invention, setting it apart from most cookies that just consisted of sugar and butter.
Okay, maybe he's onto something.
The idea led to developing a recipe that combined two novelties, using cocoa powder as an ingredient and sandwiching a vanilla filling between two cookies. Joseph made use of a new invention by T&T Vickers to make his cookies efficiently and appear fancier. It was a machine that could simultaneously cut up to 80 cookies per minute while embossing patterns on every single one. The design that Joseph chose featured a laurel wreath and a genus of flowering plants, Oreo Daphne.
It looks nice and looks very fancy. Yeah?
Once Joseph perfected his recipe, he and Jacob started to think of names that would appeal to Americans. At the time, Americans were concerned about the purity of food, since companies were adding fillers like chalk and brick dust into their products.
What? What the fuck? Chalk and brick dust? What? What? What?
To save on ingredients and maximize profits. This practice became so common that Congress enacted a food purity law. With this widespread problem in mind, the Luce brothers brainstormed for names that evoked purity. Water was the purest thing they could think of, so they combined its elements, hydrogen and oxygen, and came up with the name Hydrox.
But I don't know. Hydrox sounds like a chemical to me.
Coincidentally, companies in other industries were using the same name for their products, especially for food. There was a Hydrox ice cream, Hydrox ginger ale,
Like genuinely, it sounds like some kind of acid.
and a Hydrox root beer. But the Luce brothers cookies were such a novelty that when they launched, they stood out and people were hooked. As Hydrox's popularity grew, Nabisco's profits fell.
Really?
Adolphus became fearful and even desperate. He set out to offer his own sensational cookie. The competing product sandwiched the vanilla filling between
So he
two
stole the
cookies and
Oreo.
featured a laurel wreath. Along with mirroring Hydrox's recipe and design, Nabisco allegedly named it after the genus of flowering plants embossed on the cookie, Oreo. By
Okay.
the time Nabisco launched Oreo, Hydrox ranked as one of the most popular cookies in America and was even nicknamed the King of Biscuits. Many Americans liked that Hydrox was one of the first products to be certified kosher. In contrast,
Kosher.
Oreo was non-kosher and contained lard, pig fat,
Oh.
for years. Grocery
Really?
stores struggled to get customers to try Oreos, and one store found themselves stuck with 700 tins even after putting them on sale. Adolphus refused to lose out to the Loose brothers. He was convinced that he could overthrow them again by coming up with a brilliant ad campaign. So he did some market research and discovered that
It's not about the quality of the product, it's about how you sell it.
consumers had a habit of twisting an Oreo before eating it. They would either try to guess which side the cream would be on, keep the cream intact on one side, or hold one side while another person holds the other to see who ends up with the cream. Sensing this mere habit could turn into a fun tradition, Adolphus made it the focus of his new campaign. Meanwhile, the Loose brothers were experiencing more success than ever before. Along with opening the world's largest baking factory, the company became one of the biggest of its kind in America, placing only second to Nabisco. But like any journey to the top, there were many losses along the way. Joseph suddenly passed away from heart disease, and only 1 year later, Jacob passed away from an unknown cause,
They can't finish the
leaving
wow.
their business partner John to battle Nabisco alone. That same year, Nabisco's Oreo Twist campaign launched, and the cookie took off, taking a huge bite of Loose Wow's profits. And over the next few decades, Loose Wow's
It
continued
just shows, right? I mean, you just need to come up with a good meme to make something popular, yeah? It's not really just about the quality of the product, it's about, having a good way to sell it.
to crumble. Like his partners, John suddenly passed away from an unknown cause. Loose Wow's VP, Hanford Main, was promoted to president. Under his leadership, the company was renamed Sunshine Biscuits and
Okay.
focused on promoting Hydrox as being an original. Meanwhile, Nabisco focused on promoting Oreo's taste and quality and increased its price. Many started to believe that Hydrox was not only the copycat, but a cheap version of Oreo. Afterward, Sunshine Biscuits crumbled down within corporate America. It was sold to the American Tobacco Company, resold to Granny Goose Foods, and then resold again to Keebler Foods. Keebler tried to revive Hydrox by changing the recipe and renaming it Droxy's, but their efforts failed.
It's too late,
Later,
yeah.
Kellogg's acquired Keebler and discontinued Droxy's without warning. Many Americans were devastated by the news and
Hydrox was
pledged their
great.
loyalty to Hydrox.
The name wasn't appealing.
This is a dark time in cookie history. For those of you who say, get over it, it's only a cookie, you have never lived until you have tasted a Hydrox. Hydrox eaters tend to be independent thinkers, favor underdogs, and be skeptical.
It reminds me, I'd watched a video by Ampleman about the Coca-Cola, I think it was in the 90s that they tried to change the recipe or something, as basically, Coca-Cola wasn't doing so well, and other stuff like Pepsi was doing really well, almost like at the point of passing them in terms of like the amount of sales and all that. So they thought, it's time to change the formula or something to make it even more likable, but it backfired as people really hated it and wanted to go back to the classic or something.
Of corporate marketing. Even with Hydrox gone, they won't switch sides. Meanwhile, Nabisco continued to grow and became one of the largest baking companies in the world. Unbeknownst to them, an outsider would step in to carry on the Loose Wow's legacy.
Oh, why isn't
One
it
day I'm
well?
driving in the car with my dad, and I turned to him and I said, I'm bringing Hydrox back. It was like, this is my mission, I'm bringing that cookie that we always had, that you always used to buy, when I was a kid. I'm bringing it back.
The fight to revive Hydrox.
In the early 2000s, a tech recruiter named Elia Kassoff headed to his local Smart & Final in Southern California, desperately hoping he wouldn't have to return home empty-handed for the dozenth time. It was the only place where he could buy a box full of one of his favorite childhood candies, Astro Pops, an aerodynamic-shaped lollipop created by two rocket scientists in the 60s, arguably the most iconic lollipop in the world because of its unique shape. For several months, they were nowhere to be found in Smart & Final, and this day was no different. When Elia asked the staff about them, he was taken aback by the response. Astro Pops had been discontinued. Most people would have let it go, but Elia wasn't like most.
Anyone's seen the movie Zombieland? The character was really into like the Twinkie, I think it is, and that's the only thing that he wants, right? It's kind of like that, yeah. Like, imagine if there was some kind of underworld like this and everything stops being produced because there's no industry anymore, yeah? Like, some people would become like this. I mean, you know, we would have some addiction to something. I mean, I would be like that with Monster Energy, right? I mean, I would literally travel the world looking for more Monster Energy until the day there's none anymore and I just wither and die, you know?
Aunt Doris Kassoff married Ed Leaf after meeting at a USO dance following World War II. Ed's father and uncles founded Leaf Brands nearly 100 years ago, which made Jolly Ranchers, Whoppers, Milk Duds, and other iconic products. When Elia was a child, he would visit family in New York every summer and was always given candy samples from Uncle Ed. Elia would either keep them for himself or sell them at school during recess. To him, candy was more than just a treat. It was part of his family's legacy.
So I couldn't let my favorite lollipop, die. So I called up a company called Spangler, which made Astro Pops at the time. And I just said, where are they? And they said, yeah, we decided it wasn't part of our marketing. So we discontinued it. So it just had to come out of my mouth. I said, would you sell the rights? I couldn't just let someone else either take the reins of it or just let the product die out. It was my job to kind of take it and keep it and rebuild it. So they said, sure, we'll sell it to you. We're not doing anything with the rights and we're not making it anymore.
I wish every company was like this. Like, seriously. I wish every company was like this. I can't help but think of the video game industry and how that's like, the opposite mentality, right? We're not doing anything with it, but absolutely not. Even if we're doing nothing with it, we're not selling the rights.
At the time, Elia was at the top of his field and had just finalized the largest cash deal in the history of recruiting. He planned on bringing Astro Pops back as a mere hobby and then go back to focusing on recruiting.
But I was having so much fun bringing Astro Pop back. The day I bought the rights, I couldn't sleep because I was like, oh my gosh, I own my favorite candy in the world and it's all mine. Like, how could that be? How could that? That's impossible. And then I said to myself, once I started having all this fun, I started saying, I wonder what other products are out there that were discontinued that I liked as a kid that are no longer being made. I mean, there's got to be others.
Elia decided to relaunch Astro Pops and more of his favorite childhood products under the Leaf Brand's name. So he immediately acquired the trademark since the Hershey Company purchased its US division in the 90s. After acquiring the Leaf Brand's trademark and succeeding in relaunching a few products, Elia set out to bring back Hydrox. Like the others, he discovered that it was discontinued because of poor management decisions, like changing the recipe or name, and that there were many people like him who longed for Hydrox's return. There was just one problem. Kellogg still owned the Hydrox trademark and allegedly sold Crush Bits that were mixed with other products such as ice cream. And since it was a billion-dollar company, it was surely going to be difficult for Elia to find out and acquire the rights. He couldn't just call up the CEO as he did with Astro Pops. So he decided to write a letter to Kellogg's asking if they were selling Hydrox as Crush Bits or whole cookies, and if so, where could he find them? Surprisingly, he received a letter back from Kellogg's informing him that they've discontinued Hydrox. Kellogg's mere response was proof that Elia needed to fight for Hydrox's trademark, because under federal law, anyone can purchase a trademark if they have proof that a company has no plans of using it. Elia immediately applied for Hydrox's and was given...
Is that still a thing today? Because I feel like this happens all the time. Or I guess companies are just good at like, not losing their rights by faking that they want to use it or something.
The rights a year later. Now that Elia had the Hydrox trademark, he had to solve another problem: recreating the original recipe. Elia started by looking for an old, unopened package to uncover the ingredients and managed to find one from 1998 on Craigslist for $7. Afterward, he enlisted help from Sunshine Biscuit's former CEO and his head of product development, food scientists, and Hydrox fans to recreate the recipe. Fortunately, their joint efforts were a success, and Elia was able to relaunch Hydrox a year later.
Damn. I kind of want to
In
try
a
it now.
strange twist of fate, Nabisco, now renamed Mondelez, started crumbling beginning that year.
Oh.
Then presidential candidate Donald Trump announced that he was boycotting Oreo after discovering Mondelez laid off half of its US workers to move production to Mexico.
No more Oreos. They make Oreos, don't they, right? No more Oreos. I don't like Oreos anymore.
And later, the
This
media
fucking guy.
revealed when Mondelez made Oreo kosher, they replaced lard with hydrogenated oil, which is even worse for the heart, and didn't use a healthier alternative until nearly a decade after. Meanwhile, Leaf...
Okay, well, maybe he was right for once. Maybe Oreo is kind of bad, I guess. I guess, what is it, a broken clock, strikes right once a day or something?
Brands was making Hydrox without hydrogenated oil or other low-quality ingredients. The media also revealed that the FDA allegedly prohibited Mondelez from using the term cream to market Oreo since it didn't contain the product at all.
Okay.
Mondelez clearly had their hands
Then
full.
what is it?
Still, new allegations claim that it didn't stop them from trying to get a hold of one product that kept them in line for decades: Hydrox. When Elia relaunched Hydrox, thousands of supermarkets stocked up and sales rang up about $500,000. The numbers proved that Hydrox still had a loyal following and convinced major retailers to carry the brand. But yet again, there was another problem that stood in Elia's way, one he had no idea about until one of the most powerful companies in the world stepped in.
It was actually a buyer at Walmart that was sitting in her office, and she's like, look, I'm going to bring Hydrox back and put them in Walmart, but I got to warn you, you're going to run into a major problem, and you need to figure out how to deal with that problem. And I'm looking at her going, I'm excited, we're getting into Walmart, and I'm like, well, problem? What problem? She's like, well, the Mondelez folks come into our stores a couple times a week to do restocking. They're going to hide your product any
really? It's that childish.
Any chance they get, they're going to hide in the back of the shelf, back of the store, anywhere they can to make sure you fail, because you're their closest threat.
Elia was shocked.
Like, is that even... Like, doesn't a Walmart a security camera? And then isn't that illegal? Like, a competitor, like, doing this, isn't that illegal?
But not surprised, Mondelez is a category captain for a number of retailers, a supplier that assists in determining where products should be placed on store shelves.
Oh, okay, so it's legal. I see.
Moreover, they have a direct store distribution system, delivering and restocking their own products a few times a week instead of going through a third-party distributor. Not long after Elia received the warning, several retail buyers and customers reported that they noticed Hydrox appeared to be hidden in stores. They were allegedly moved to the top of a shelf, turned sideways so that the label couldn't be seen, or blocked by other products and tags, forcing Elia to file a complaint with the FTC and seek damages in court. When he shared the news on Facebook, many people came forward to share their own experiences.
But again, this might backfire. I mean, now you need to make a campaign to make people know of that, and no one is going to love that, right? Yeah.
Our local Ralph's Kroger's carried Hydrox cookies for over a year. We bought every week. Checkers said they were flying off the shelf. All of a sudden, gone. An employee told me the Oreo folks threatened to cut back on their deliveries if Hydrox wasn't dropped. This is not what American competition is about. This is predatory. I had to threaten to throw Nabisco out of some stores I operated back in the 60s and 70s because of their aggressive behavior in stealing shelf space and damaging competitors' products. I had to separate a Nabisco and Sunshine employee who had tied up in the middle of a cookie aisle because of Nabisco infringing on Sunshine's shelf space. This is not a new practice of Nabisco. It has been going on for a long time. I can
Crazy.
personally attest that Mondelez does in fact do this. I was a retail reset merchandiser for SAS Retail Services, one of the 5 Walmart approved vendors. In my territory of 5 Walmart stores, I would regularly see Mondelez merchandisers and that company has them do some shady things. I personally work for Nabesco and have never been instructed to move, hide your cookies. This is a retail store issue and not a Mondelez issue. While
I personally work somewhere and, you know, I am one of many thousands of employees, but since I never saw anything, it doesn't exist, of course.
Mondelez denied the allegations, Elia remains committed to seeking justice for Hydrox, which is now being sold on Amazon. And even though he discovered Oreo is now being marketed as the original, he isn't the slightest bit discouraged from continuing to produce Hydrox. In an interview, Elia revealed how he's managed to persevere and what advice he would give to other entrepreneurs.
It might sound corny, but
You
find
care
something
about
you
your
really
product,
love to do. You know,
Right.
what is your passion? Because that's where you're going to put most of your energy. It's not stuff that you're not really passionate about. When you add that passion into your whatever you do, you're doing it at 100 to 110%. You're not going to worry about little barriers or little walls that people put up because you know and you believe in what you're doing. That's the key thing is find something that you really, really like. Not something that you can make a lot of money in necessarily because that'll come later. You know, if you're so committed and you really put that passion in, it'll convert, you know, in your success.
This is the story of an American invention that created the world's best-selling cookie and the people who fought corporate giants to keep it alive. For more inspiring stories and advice from
Okay. Well, I'd definitely love to try Hydrox now. I've definitely had some Oreo before, though I'm sure they're like nothing like America. I mean, people, you always hear about it, right? Like, with the EU regulation, a lot of American products are very different in the EU, and they often taste and are made of very different stuff. So maybe the Oreo I've had in France are like nothing like the one in America. But now I'm kind of interested in Hydrox, just for, you know, the history of it, right? There's no doubt that like knowing the history of the product makes you want to give it a try. There's no doubt. I mean, in the end, you know, what I don't really like what Oreo is doing. If I tried both and I liked Oreo more, I wouldn't really care, right? Because in the end, I'm not actually like a fan of companies or something. I'm a fan of what I like. So like if I taste both and I like Oreo more, that's what I would keep having or something. You know what I mean? Like in the same way that, you know, I drink Monster Energy and not Red Bull because I like the taste of Monster Energy more, even though I like what Red Bull does a lot more, you know, like all of the sports stuff that they sponsor, you know, and the cool event that they put together, you know. Like if I was just following like a fan mentality of, you know, I like this company more or something, I guess I would drink Red Bull, but, you know, I don't really like it that much. But yeah, very interesting. I mean, I'm sure like for so many classic products, food and otherwise, there's stories like this, especially, you know, with the US system of, you know, like all the laws and the capitalism and, you know, the kind of battles between companies, right? So I'm sure you can make a video like this about so many products, which, you know, I wouldn't mind watching more. I mean, it's pretty interesting. So yeah, maybe one day I'll try Hydrox. I don't know. I still feel like it's a terrible name. It genuinely sounds like some kind of chemical and, you know, something that I would find at like the pharmacy, but hey, you know, I don't know. Very interesting video. Quite the story.